There we go. We're recording now. So, hey Sean, how are you going
Howdy,
again?
Liam.
We've already said hi, but obviously. So this is I'm Liam. Hello everyone. This is Sean Hartley, um, and he's from Cairns. And I'll let you introduce yourself, Sean. Like how'd you get into hockey and how'd you find your way here?
Yeah. Well, originally I'm from New Zealand. I'm a mainlander as opposed to an islander, but I did spend a fair amount of time on Waiheke Island growing up, and find it an absolute tragedy that I never discovered underwater hockey as a child because I would have loved the crap out of it. But anyway, such is life.
Late bloomer.
Um, how did I find underwater hockey? Um, well, I'm 47 now, and when I was about 40, I was getting fat and pretty unfit. And I was aware that when you kind of turn 40 and you're fat and unfit, it's pretty high risk heart attack kind of thing. And I've got three kids, wanted to see them grow up, get married, have grandkids, all that sort of thing. So I thought, well, I've got to chuck something in my life that's going to start getting me fit and active again. And ran around Cairns looking at different sports that were being played and tried a whole bunch of them. There's a bunch of pretty weird ones happening in Cairns, ultimate disc, and, gridiron, and roller derby, and yeah, all of the. I tried a whole bunch of them,
Hmm.
and I was at one of these ones and talking about weird sports in Cairns, and this girl that was there said, "You think this is weird? They play something called underwater hockey down at the Warri pool." And I was like, "What is underwater hockey? That's nuts!" And I was into fishing at the time, and so I thought, well, you know what? I've checked out all these weird sports. I'll go give underwater hockey a go. And so I contacted the person who was on the contact page, and yeah, she said, "Come on down." It was basically around 12 fat 40-year-old guys who seemed to be dolphins to me, not terribly friendly. And I do remember that I was told to get on the fucking bottom. Probably not money to get that one out. Quite regularly. And I'm holding on to the side, gasping for breath because I'm fat and unfit. And yeah, I came back a couple of times, and I think on the fourth time I was about to give it up, and one of the guys there was like, "Oh, this dude's hung around. I probably should show him something." And so yeah, that was the start of an obsession.
That's a good intro because yeah, it's a really good intro because we're going to talk about clubs like what's a good underwater hockey club, how do you grow an underwater hockey club. So it's kind of almost like you experienced this, um, probably what most people experience when they first start, to be honest, at a club. Like,
Yeah,
your fitness, it
yeah.
doesn't matter how fit you are, you're still not fit enough to play hockey when you start, are you? Because your system's just not used to it. So yeah.
I mean, there's different fitnesses that you have. You can be, I think, pretty fit for underwater hockey, and then someone says, "Oh, we're going to go climb a mountain," and you're like, "Yeah, cool." And these guys are ploughing up the mountain, and you're struggling with your male pride, going, "I'm just not going to let it show, but I'm dying here." And
Yeah.
yeah, and so they get up to the top of this mountain, and you would have thought you were fitter than them, but if you jump in a pool, absolutely dominate them. But it's a sport-based fitness that you've picked up, not a. I mean, there's a certain amount of general cardio fitness that you have, but it doesn't apply to all areas of life.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
Yeah, interesting.
yeah.
So yeah, when did I meet you? Yeah, you came over and played some hockey in Wellington. That's when we first met, eh? Ages ago.
Yes,
Yeah.
I think that I have no idea. Around about 2016, I think 2017.
Hmm. Because
We
you were going
went
to try.
over.
You were getting into the Masters then, I think.
No, that was before then.
Was it?
I was just interested. We were on a holiday around Australia, and I decided that because I've gotten into this new sport, underwater hockey, I was going to try and play it everywhere that I could when I was in a town that played it. And yeah, Wellington, Sam said, "I'd hook up with Liam. Liam will be great. He'll talk to you." And he
He'll
also
talk
gave
to
me
you.
bench. I think you guys gave me 5 minutes of time, but that was all right. Complete stranger, probably never come back. Who cares?
Yeah, you came around to our house
There
and
I was.
had a cup of tea. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
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 Well, I'm fascinated by everything, and definitely fascinated by how to make things. I mean, my job is a manual arts teacher, so
Right.
how things are made and constructed, that's all deeply fascinated by me. I don't want to replicate a lot of it, but I want to understand. So,
Totally.
yeah.
Mm.
I don't even drink tea, but hey, one for the team.
It was worth it just to have a snoop through our
Yeah,
fledgling workshop back then. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
yeah,
it's good.
yeah.
So I saw the reason I've dragged you on here, Sean, is because basically we've just been talking about where Cairns Underwater Hockey kind of started from when, or where it was when you kind of first got involved there. And I've been over and done some coaching with you guys, and it's a big club. It's grown a lot. It's a friendly club. You guys are doing a lot of things really right, basically, and anyone from the outside can see that you're doing a lot of things really well. Um,
Yeah.
and a wee while ago, you basically plonked a sort of like some tips and tips and tricks or strategies for building a club or growing a club that you guys had found worked for you guys in Cairns on the coaching forum on Facebook, and it got a lot of interest,
Yeah.
and I thought we could basically just go through and chat through some of it, and talk us through the details. And so this is obviously this isn't a 15-second YouTube clip to get clicks. This is like we're gonna go down the rabbit hole and fall out in Wonderland and break a leg, and just kind of get deep into it if we can. So like what made you start sort of deciding that you're gonna, obviously at some point you and the people around you decided that you're gonna sort of do something about growing the club that you're in, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, the dude that was friendly to me was his name was Warren Hughes, and him and me were probably, I guess, some of the younger people in the club, and probably the more keen ones. And there's literally between 10 to 14 people that would rock up on a night back in the day, and wasn't super friendly. It was just a whole bunch of guys that came down. They wanted to play hockey. That was all they were there for. Pack up, see you later, kind of thing. And over winter, that number would drop to 6 people. And when you play 3-on-3 hockey, unless you've got a very small court, it's quite demanding.
It's an outdoor pool as
and,
well, isn't it?
Yeah. And so me and this guy Warren got a little bit jacked of only having 6 people rock up, and we were like, well, we enjoy this. We want to do it more often. We want to see it grow so that the games are more competitive, more fun, more variety, more social, all that sort of stuff. And so we sat down with another person and came up with a bit of a 5-year plan of where we wanted to see hockey be, and we put some little, what were relatively unreachable goals in there, and then just started trying to tick them off. And we, I guess, have achieved a whole bunch of those. We didn't achieve one of the ones we wanted, which was to take out the Queensland titles, but we've definitely overreached on a bunch of the ones that we had that we would have said were unreachable early on. So yeah, it was good fun.
Hopefully you'll have more chances at that when hockey gets back on its feet again.
Yeah.
You can still keep shooting for that. Yeah. So goal setting is where you started then. I suppose that's pretty sensible.
Yeah, goal setting, and just I guess even though people weren't at this meeting, we assigned people jobs, and we said, we'll just get this person to do this. They've got the capacity to do that. I'm sure they can do it. We'll make it happen. And because we're only talking literally 10 volunteers, and they weren't even volunteers. They were unknowing volunteers. We were going to give them jobs. And I mean, obviously, one of the ones that worked pretty well for us was social media promotion. And I guess, in a sense, if anybody's played computer games, we treated it a little bit like a computer game. You start off in Age of Empires, you got your one little villager, and then, in game time and down the track, you've got a whole load of cities running around. Well, that's how we viewed our Facebook page.
Right.
We start off one like and see how many we can get over the years. And yeah, I think we've grown to be one of Australia's largest Facebook pages, and try and keep a bunch of interesting content going on that.
Right.
Mainly because we want locals to see it and locals to come down. But happy for other people to come visit us as well. So.
Can you kind of market that? I've never actually tried. Yeah, I haven't really thought about doing that with a Facebook page. Do you
Yeah,
kind
you
of
can
you market
it.
your own Facebook page without having to do paid ads and whatnot? Can you just kind of post around
And
local
more,
pages?
this is what we found. Facebook will give us free advertising money, and so we would just promote the ad in our local area. And I'd say we probably picked up 1 to 3 people a week to come down and have a good bit of a go.
Wow.
Retaining those 1 to 3 people was always pretty difficult, but we kept a bunch of them, and as we kept a bunch of them, they realised that they could get a bunch more, and yeah, it became organic in some ways.
Viral.
Yeah, well, not exactly viral, but as
Well,
viral as underwater hockey getting Cairns.
yeah, not like a meme viral, but yeah, essentially. I mean, I guess Facebook is kind of like the modern equivalent of the notice board at the pool that people stick bits of paper on, because we don't really pay attention to that stuff anymore, do we? Really?
No, no.
Right.
So yeah.
So you advertised. So I've got a printout of your little document here. So you're saying, so you were basically advertising to other sports groups that you reckoned would be keen, like watery sports.
Yeah. We tried hitting up swimming clubs, but we found that generally swimming clubs were worried that their swimming members were, as one coach said to me, if the kids enjoy playing a game more than they enjoy doing laps, we're going to lose swimmers.
Yeah.
And so and sort of say, well, obviously not everyone in your club is going to be a champion. So those ones that you can see are about to leave the sport, how about you say, go and have a go at underwater hockey? And he agreed to do that, but I don't know whether we actually got anyone out of it. We've had some success pollinating with water polo, because it's a bit of a niche sport in Cairns as well, and so they run on low numbers, lower than us, and so some of their players can play underwater hockey and some of our players go play water polo. I think we're probably better at stealing their players than they are at stealing ours, but I don't mind.
It's a bit harder when sports kind of feel like there's poaching going on, I suppose, and the swim squad would be dreading the coach coming over to them at the end of a session with a little card like, here's the contact details for underwater hockey, because you've your time as a swimmer is at an end. Now you can go and play underwater hockey. I'm sure that's not happening.
Yeah.
But
No.
and you did pay
Pretty
some. You paid for Facebook as well every now and again, like
Just over for us, the summer months, definitely. People like Cairns is a hot destination, and so the pool is a nice 27 degrees, and it's a pretty good way to finish off a day. Jump in the pool, play some hockey, and jump out, and yeah, you so over the summer months we have paid for some advertisements, but not big money.
just a little bit.
I think our advertising for Facebook would be still under $700 for the last 6-7 years.
Okay.
So I think I was paying $10 for ads to run for 3 months, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
not big dollars at all. When you're a small Facebook page, Facebook wants you to grow because that then gives them the ability to get, I guess, more reach out of you. So they're quite happy to support you to grow when you're small. I don't get the offers that I used to when we were small at all now.
Oh, that's interesting too.
You want an ad? How much it's going to cost? Whereas before they were like, here's $20 of free ad credit.
Yeah.
Here's $60 ad credit.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I still get those free offers.
yeah.
So you started having meals as well. A lot of clubs do the same, like they have curries and stuff in London, where I've been. And what kind of meals do you have in Cairns? Was that after every training?
Yes, we initially were only playing 1 night a week, and then we went to 2 nights a week, and then we went to 3 nights a week, and we figured that we would divide those nights up. Back in around 2:15, I think, where roughly Monday nights was a competitive night, Wednesday nights was a training night, so very little gameplay but lots of skills, one-on-ones, two-on-ones, and then Thursday night would become our social night opportunity, and that worked out really, really well, I think, because it gave players who came into our club the opportunity to get to know who we were, and because half of our club's into spearfishing, that also turned into offers to come diving for the weekend or hang out or make weekend plans. And yeah, I think that was definitely a part of our growth. If you can make your club a bit of a family-like atmosphere, that's people look for that stuff. And so when they find a sport where they get good quality exercise and that kind of family feeling, they really like that. So,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, who wouldn't? You
So
play heaps of
meals,
hockey.
we've got, well, depends. You live down in Brisbane, you can play hockey every night of the week, Saturday. Um, yeah, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday. But yeah, we just eat 3 nights a week.
That's a lot.
Well, if
That's
you want
still
to
a lot.
drive up, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel. Sometimes it's heaps. Sometimes it's like, oh, another day would be good if I didn't have to organise it.
Yes, true. Yeah.
Yeah. We were driving up to Mossman because we've tried to plant it in a few places around. So we've got it up and running in Cooktown pretty well now, and we've done a plant up in Weipa. We tried to get it going in Mossman. We'll have another bash of that probably this summer. But yeah, so just we've tried in a few other places, but pool access is similar, I think, to different places. Some pools are keen to let you in, and other pools are like not a chance. So, yeah.
Yeah. What kind of
Yeah,
relationship? That's a good segue. What kind of relationship do you guys have with the local pool? It must be pretty good. Like, are they all your mates or?
Best one can. We're always like, yeah. Officially, we're always trying to be super friendly to lifeguards, pool staff. If we have a function there, we try and make sure that everybody who's working on that day gets a free coffee. Just as a thank you for pulling lane ropes or just supervising whatever. And yeah, I think that definitely helps when you know the lifeguard's first name and you're like, how was your weekend or whatever. It helps those people who do field uncomfortable questions, because you get the odd person who's a pool patron who feels like they deserve a 50-metre lane, and all of a sudden hockey's happening and they don't get their 50-metre lane to themselves, and then they're like complaining to pool staff. And if you've got that good relationship with pool staff, they're like, yeah, look, come on Tuesday night, come on Friday night, instead of going, yeah, we hate underwater hockey as well, they're a pain in the arse. So,
Yeah. Some poor lane swimmer suddenly
yeah,
has someone like surface underneath their stomach or something, and someone's just completely forgotten where they are. Yeah, yeah. Is there any secrets and tricks? Like, was the relationship with the pool good when you started, or have you had to build it? Is there anything that, apart from obviously being nice to them?
It was definitely. I mean, it's one of those things. I remember negotiating the first agreement, and the guy was like, "Well, we can give you 2 lanes," and we were like, "Don't know how you're going to play underwater hockey in 2 lanes." And he's like, "Yeah, but that's all I can give you." And we were like, "Well, we need a minimum of 5." And I said, "Imagine if you're playing netball or league, and they give you 25 metres of the field, and they say, 'There you go, boys, playing that.'" Everyone's going to look and laugh. And so the guy kind of got it, and so we figured out how we could get 5 lanes and all that sort of stuff. But there have been a few pools in Cairns that have been burnt by previous people who have run underwater hockey, and we're probably never getting into them until management changes in that pool again, which is a bit sad. Just you got to have the right kind of people, I think, running your club, and they have to be people that understand people. And every now and then somebody takes the job because no one else is doing it or something like that, and yeah, then all of a sudden you're stuck with someone who doesn't know how to operate with people, and they're pissing people off left, right, and centre, and yeah, that doesn't work so well.
True. So get your smiley, friendly people to do the lane bookings.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah, that's good.
You're smiling friendly people who can remember the names of people and have a chat, and yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Yeah, I've had some. Yeah, it's not nice to have pool staff which don't like you, because then it just becomes a hassle. And it's just one thing that you shouldn't need to worry about, hopefully.
Yeah.
You also got here that you got to know the owners of the local dive shops as well, and you found that they would advertise you guys to their customers sometimes.
Yeah. We initially we had posters in all of the local dive shops and spearfishing shops, it's probably something we should really look at actually, because the reality is people do hobbies for a reason, and people who are into things like spearfishing or diving love being in the water. And so, you know, weekends come by and they've got the boat ready and they're off for a dive or a spear or whatever, and they come back and they've had a great weekend. And so underwater hockey seemed to me to be that opportunity to get them in the water again a couple of nights a week, either working on their fitness or just being in the water. And so, yeah, we probably recruited quite a few people over the years that have come and gone through just that contact with the spearfishing shops and the dive shops. And the way that we've always promoted it to them is, if you guys are happy to talk to us, we'll be sending our members to you to buy gear instead of buying it online or whatever.
Right.
So fins, masks, snorkels, all that sort of stuff, you know, can be bought from those guys, and quite often the shops are happy then to let your members have a 10% discount or something, which is even cooler.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sure. I had a thought there. Yeah. When I first started hockey, like it was like 1992 or something, in Wellington, there was actually a huge league. It was actually a really big. It was a big league that went on, and there was probably about, I don't know how many clubs, maybe 8, maybe even more than 8 clubs in Wellington, and a whole bunch of them were all like dive club. They're essentially dive clubs which had like a bunch of the guys in the dive club came along and played underwater hockey as well. And so, yeah, and apparently in the 80s, like the late 80s, there was sort of, I don't know if you call it like a golden age of underwater hockey in Wellington. We had even more, like the league was bigger and there was heaps more dive clubs still, but that actually faded away as I played. The longer I played, the more that faded away, until now there's a few areas in the country where still you have that connection, because it's obvious, it's such an obvious connection to make. But some places now, yeah, a lot of the clubs are just fully, they're not connected to any kind of dive shops, dive clubs anymore at all. So it's kind of a weird dynamic shift.
Used to be part of the PADI course in the 90s. You go to your PADI dive cert, and they would have this as an instructor, because I've had a couple of instructors tell me this. There was a component where you had to play a couple of hours of underwater hockey, because it was good for your snorkeling skills and stuff like that, your duck dives, and so there was a small component of the PADI dive course which was underwater hockey. So if we get that snuck back in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. We did a when I was in school, like it was like sixth form. In sixth form PE, we had this segment where it was like 3 months where we went down to the pool and we did like a snorkeling segment where everyone in the class got to try to sort of like learn how to snorkel. And I was like, yes, this is my thing. I'm going to ace this. I wasn't the best student, but so as we went along, I ended up taking all the classes instead of the instructor, because the instructor started off where he was just like, get me to demo everything, and then by the second half of it, I was kind of like basically running the classes, and then by the end, when they actually finally gave out the scores, one of the other guys in my class got 100%, and I got like 71% or something, and this dude was like rubbish. So I was like, either this guy's just like playing a ratty joke on me, or he's accidentally like switched the names around, and that guy got my score.
Just now teaches his class.
I was bummed out, but yeah, hockey great for snorkeling skills, for sure.
Yeah.
Where we got
so definitely as much cross-pollination as you can have happen is really good for the club, because there is a certain kind of person who likes being on and in the water, and there's a certain kind of person who likes climbing a mountain and walking on a bush trail. And I know I'm not the second person, but I'm definitely the first person.
Yeah, true.
And so, yeah, I think like a lot of sports, underwater hockey just has a promotional problem in the fact that people just are never exposed to it. And if they were exposed to it, there's a whole bunch of people that would be totally into it. I mean, I look at places like Sydney, Brisbane, with the populations that they have, and I sort of think at least 1% of that population would have to be totally into underwater hockey. The reason they're not is they've never been exposed to it, before that had a really bad experience.
Mm.
One can be fixed, and the other maybe can be fixed as well. And so, I mean, that's my goal for Cairns, 1% of the population. So 150,000. If I can get 1% of that playing underwater hockey, we've got the greatest underwater hockey centre in Australia. So,
Yeah, that'd be good. You'd have to,
yeah.
that'd be booking out the pool. That's for sure.
I mean, we've gone from, like, literally, we've gone from having 6 players rock up when I first started playing in winter to now 2 solid games running all through winter. You know, we were averaging 32 players a night a couple of weeks ago, but we've dropped back down to around about 27, 28, which for a small regional centre that could barely manage 6 players a night is pretty good.
Oh, it's massive. Yeah.
We haven't been able to run 2 games through winter up until this year, and so I think one of our goals this year hopefully will be to try and either get a 3rd court or figure out how we run more than 4 teams through a night. So because over summer our numbers pop up around the 40 plus players jumping in the water. So yeah, definitely people sitting and subbing loses you a few players. So opening more courts up, I think, may be an answer for us. But then that costs more money. So
you could do things like when I was in the Netherlands, they run this sort of system on their club nights where if the numbers are just in the middle of sort of like not quite enough for 4 teams.
yeah,
If they just have slightly too many people and they don't want to have heaps of subs, they basically split into 3 teams. So 3 teams are 6-ish, and and then you just have one team plays the other, and as soon as someone scores the goal, the team that scored the goal stays in, and the other team swaps. So then if you keep on scoring goals, then you're also getting tired, and then eventually you get too fatigued and the other team scores a goal and then you're out, and it sort of swaps around. So you're constantly like in, out, and the whole team's subbing in and out. It's actually works really well. Yeah, I don't know.
no, we've done a bit of
Yeah. But there's lots of different things that people can do where a lot of the time we kind of get stuck in these, I don't know, just the sort of train tracks of what is a normal game and what people expect. And like for example, if you have 2 teams and playing against each other, and one team's a bit stacked, and one team's constantly scoring goals, and it's like, oh no, we picked the teams a bit crap today. You know what I mean? Like it ended up a little bit.
Yep.
If you have something like if you score the goal, you swap teams.
Yeah.
You
there's a few different. Sam has introduced that one to us. That's been quite a lot of fun on a training night. We might finish a training night off with that game for 10 minutes, where 2 teams are 6, but as soon as you score a goal, you're on the other team, and then it's like you got one person who's trying to be the super sub, pass to themselves, go around with the body, score the goal, and I don't think anyone's ever pulled it off, but we've had a few people try.
Yeah, that kind of thing can be good. So if you've got 2 games running and you've got a big group like that, how do you kind of deal with, what's your approach to players of different levels? So you've got some quite high level or really high level players in your club, and you've also got obviously beginners that you're constantly bringing in. So what do you kind of do for that? Lots of clubs have a bit of a problem with that.
Yeah. So ideally, we try not to have beginners come on a Monday night, but then on a Thursday night, it's been difficult to build up, but there's a club expectation on players that they're going to try and provide positive feedback to players, and the more experienced players are definitely playing in a coaching role where they're not going hardcore to play the game. They're more trying to keep an eye on a player that's a new player, and then give them positive feedback and say, you know what, that was really awesome the way you did that. Keep doing that. That was great. Or you might say, you know how you did that? That's not going to work super often. How about you do it this way? And so try and have kind of a maximum of 2 new players to one of those experienced players, or else you throw more experienced players on the team and divvy it out that way. But definitely that positive feedback and coaching helps those players grow really, really fast, which was very different to my experience. My experience was like, just get on the bottom. And I'm like, I was. but now I need to
Figure it out for yourself.
the side. I
Yeah.
had my legs and my arms. If I hold onto the side, I don't need to kick and I can breathe. And yeah, so definitely in terms of player retention, that and the reality is a new person really enjoys having a more experienced player tell them they did something really, really well. Or, if I've got a beginner player and I've been working with that beginner player on how to swerve and I see that person try and swerve me, I let him get away with it. And that person will come up to me after the game and go, I swerved you. And I go, yeah, it was really, really good. I loved it. You keep doing that. Just keep taking on people and keep practicing. You're not going to get away with it all the time. In fact, you won't get away with it very often. But the more you practice it, the better you're going to get at it. And, you just see that happiness in their face that they got past the experienced player or whatever. And sure, maybe you could have stopped them. A whole bunch of the time, sometimes you're in a bad body position because of something else, and this person's picked the puck up and they get it past you. You're like, well done. That was awesome. Good work. And that feedback and that experience makes that beginner person have a great time and they want to come back. And they might not get away with it for the next 10 times, but then they keep trying and they get past other people, and yeah.
Mm.
I think definitely there's a thing that runs through sports clubs where people think that constructive criticism is great, and I would say that there's very few people who respond well to constructive criticism. Mostly, if you can tell somebody two things you saw them do really, really well in a game, that works far better than saying, oh, your body positioning was shit, or your bum was in the air, or, you just sat on the bottom a little bit longer, or if you, whatever. That doesn't work so well as saying, I just loved the way that you pulled the puck into your body and then you swam off on a different direction and then you passed it off to a forward who's in front of you. That was awesome. Do it again.
Mm.
There's a whole difference to approaches, and I definitely think one works better.
Yeah, I think there's a kind of a bit of a there is a sort
I've
of
had some of that from you.
was that?
I've had some of that kind of feedback from you.
Oh, have I? What? Good
Yeah,
feedback or?
yeah. Yeah, good feedback.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, made me feel good.
Good. Yeah, I was going to say there's definitely a bit of an idea that in sports, the sort of idea that you can kind of softly handle the way that the way that a coach or a teammate might talk to another teammate, or that you can just kind of like do the super jockey thing and kind of use a swear word or whatever, or say, hey, that was shit, or sort your act out or whatever, and this sort of idea that some people respond well to that kind of negative reinforcement, but I kind of think it's a myth, because I really can't think of any player that I've ever coached who I thought would actually be a good idea to kind of run that negative route of, hey, that was and psychologically it's not anything that works either, because you don't want to talk about something negatively that went wrong. What you psychologically you want to actually focus on the thing that should have or would have gone right. You know what I mean? Like so you always want to focus on, instead of don't do that, you should always start with let's remember to do this kind of thing. But I don't know. I guess there might be some people who love getting sworn at out there.
Well, given the wide variety of people, it's inevitable, but I think the number is significantly lower than most people think.
Yeah, and I've sure swore at a lot of players throughout my career until I kind of figured that out. I'm sure I did. But yeah, feels bad. But yeah, treating people nice basically. So you don't let Sam smash the newbies when they come in. Is that right?
No, I don't think. I mean, the reality is, if you play in those sort of mixed games, there'll be times when you've got the puck and you come up against Sam, or you come up against. We've got Anton floating around here. We've got a kid called Guy. My own son Josiah has become a real pain in the ass, and so you can play as hard as you want against those guys. And then if you get past them, you get past them. You've had your chance to practice your high-level part of the game. If you don't, you don't. And so that I guess is the reward that Sam gets, or I get, or whatever. Plus the fact that we are slowly lifting the level of game of everyone around us. And I think so on the subject of growing clubs, you've got a whole bunch of people who enjoy playing hockey, and so they rock along and they just want their hockey game for the night. If you want your club to play better hockey, to play a larger game, then sometimes it's actually smarter to take a step back and to decrease the level of your game so that new people can enjoy it. And if those new people enjoy it and they take on board the feedback you're giving them and the skills that you put into them, within 3 to 6 months they're being annoying in the pool, and you've got an extra 2 to 3 to 10 players who are now fired up about hockey, wanting to play better hockey and playing better hockey generally. And so you might have had 12 players that were rocking up every night to play hockey. That's all they wanted to do. Now you've got 22 players. And, that extra depth of player means that you're not coming up against the same 10 people and you know what they're going to do. You've now got 10 other people in there who are a little unpredictable. And so I think you can step back and go, if we grow the sport in our local area, then we actually grow our ability to play a high level game slowly, which is the approach we've had in Cairns. So now we would have, if I think about it, 8 or 9 people who can play nearly at a national level. And, prior to that, it would have just been Sam. But because he's invested and I've invested and other people have invested in the club's development, there's now another 9 people who have that high level game. And so all of a sudden you've got the capacity for a much richer game to be played. So, yeah.
I think you don't always need to sort of like, it definitely helps if you're having sessions where you're doing skills and drills and breaking things down and focusing on learning technical stuff, but you don't necessarily have to do that to see improvements, because if you can get enough people, like you say, if you can get people who are just happy to come and kind of be constantly exposed when they're beginners, just to be constantly exposed to other players who have the different kind of technical bits and pieces that they need to learn, then eventually it kind of happens. If they're in a good environment and they're kind of, especially if you've got things going on like you're saying, like people are giving good feedback to each other and stuff, it can happen quite organically. It's going to happen much faster if you do focus on technical stuff in their own sessions though as well, of course, which not every club wants to do that.
That's the thing that we would have noticed very early on, is that we started running these training nights. It was funny, and the whole club would kind of come down probably for the first 3 or 4 going, yes, more hockey, and then you just watched a whole bunch of adults go, oh, so all we're going to do tonight, flick the puck, do 2-on-1s, piggy in the middle. I thought I was coming down for a game, and so they would disappear. And so probably for about 3 or 4 months, we had this core of players who were coming along to skills night. And it was especially noticeable with the juniors. Their skill level just went up quite dramatically. And then these adults who weren't coming to the skills night were like, how the heck is this little kid getting around me? What's going on? And so Sam or I would be like, well, they're coming to the skills night. And so we started seeing an uptake again in the adults coming along to the skills night, because they were getting frustrated at the fact that juniors and these other adults who were coming along were starting to swim rings around them. Because the reality is, I think this is a point you made at one of our training camps, if all you do is play hockey, then you probably might get to flick the puck 30 to 60 times in a night if you're lucky. 1 flick a minute, that's doing pretty well. Whereas if you jump in the pool and have a game of piggy in the middle, or you just flick with a friend for 10 minutes, you can almost get that number of flicks in prior to you playing a game. And so somebody who's got 30 flicks in a game over 50 weeks, that's 1,500 flicks. Whereas if you've got double that happening, your flick's going to be better at the end of the year because you've been practicing those skills. And so it happens in every single sport that's around. If you want to play rugby league, you rock along to a training night and you practice passing the rugby ball, you practice kicking the rugby ball, you practice receiving the rugby ball. And, for some reason, underwater hockey players think it can be different. They're like, I don't have any skills. I'm just going to be amazing without them. Watch that person put into a high pressure situation and you watch their skill level drop to the lowest possible denominator. You know, they need to deliver the 2.5 meter flick, whatever it is. And they wind up and the thing dribbles off the bat about a foot and everyone just looks at them in surprise and they're like, what happened? You know, because there's not a value placed on that acquisition of skill or that practice of skill. So, yeah.
I think it might be something to do with when you're in a game, you know, you kind of, there must be some kind of dopamine hit or something when you're in possession of the puck in a game, like when you get the puck on your stick, because you could be almost out of breath and suddenly get the puck on your stick and then do a whole heap of work, way more than you thought you could, and then you lose the puck. Especially you see this with beginning players, as soon as you lose the puck, that's it, you're done, you're hitting the surface, and then you know, so it's the time when you're on the puck, that's the kind of thing that people really, they enjoy that time on the puck. And it kind of seems to be that maybe it's just kind of too hard to, if you get, say you get to the pool, like I used to get to the pool and everyone's chatting on the side of the pool and I'd just get in the water and I'd start doing skills and passing and whatnot, and so a lot of the time I'd have like a full half an hour mucking around with the puck before everyone else managed to make their way into the pool and then be playing the game. And then once the game's finished, I'd be mucking around for another 20 minutes, or as long as the pool's open, whatever, in the water afterwards until you get chased out into the showers. And I think because some people actually, they get their enjoyment just from mucking around with the puck. Like if I'm messing with a football, I just like to kick the football around by myself as well. I like some crazy loner. But if you if you kind of get if you get a kick out of just doing that, then you're obviously gonna have more impetus to actually get in and do practice. But if you don't kind of get a kick out of mucking around with the puck, then you're in it for the game, and I can understand why people are like, I don't want to get in and do all that stuff before the game, because I'm there for the game. But yeah, the fact is, the more time you can spend with the puck on your stick, the better your skills are going to get, the better your pass is going to get. It's like the 10,000 hours skill learning thing in football, and little Lionel Messi just kicking the ball at a brick wall for like 5 hours or whatever a day in his backyard or whatever, you know, like, yeah.
I think that actually brings me, like, if you get heaps of clubs have people come down, you know, wanting to try a sport out, and like me when I first came to Cairns, they just kind of get thrown in the deep end. There's not a lot of explanation, there's not a lot of information, it's just here you go. And I definitely remember in the first game that I played, probably touched the puck twice, didn't score any goals, whatever. And in some ways I look back and I feel amazed that I kept going. I was like, it was a pretty unrewarding experience.
Yeah, and you probably got kicked in the nuts as well. Yeah, that happens. One of the things that we have tried to implement within our club is that you give that new person as much time as you possibly can with the puck. If they're not in the right position and you've got the opportunity to score a goal or the opportunity to swim the puck over to them, then you pick the opportunity to swim the puck over to them and give it to them and see what they do. And the other thing that we used to do, we don't do it quite so much anymore, probably because it's kind of fallen off the radar, is try and let that new person score one goal at least for that night. Because when you're playing underwater hockey for the first time, the only thing that you're really aware of is your bat and that little pink thing. You're not aware of what your body position's doing. You're not aware of where anybody else is. All you can see is that goal tray. And you can have 11 players sitting on the surface watching you score this goal, and you're completely not aware of it. You're just like, I'm amazing. And, you know, you can come to the surface and everyone goes, that was awesome, well done. They've got no idea that they were let score the goal. You know, that people would, you know, every now and then we have a few people who are experienced players who get blinded by that thing, and so they're busily trying to hard tackle this new player, and you're grabbing their fin, pulling them backwards, and they're looking at you angry because they want to stop the goal. And
We have a. I'll tell you a story. We have a player in our club whose name shall remain nameless, whose daughter came along to play. Daughter would have been 8 years old, 9 years old, and she's in the water. She's played a couple of nights, and she's got the puck on her stick. She's swum 10 meters, big swim for an 8-year-old, with all these adults in the pool, and she's about to score a goal. And her dad sees that there's a goal about to be scored, and so he just comes barreling in at 300 miles an hour, cleans the puck off his stick, cleans her up, swims the puck around, and swims off looking for support. Meanwhile, 10 other players are just watching in stunned disbelief at the fact that his own daughter is going to score her first goal. Dad saves the day.
Oh, he was confident. He was confident she was going to get the next one. It's all good.
But the reality is, everybody gets a little bit of that sometimes, and so yeah, it's just one of those things. But certainly, if you can give that person coming along the best possible experience, you stand the best possible chance of them coming back next week.
Sure.
If they jump in the water and they see a whole bunch of people who are dolphins, and they maybe touch the puck once, but it gets cleaned off their stick straight away, and they go, well, that looked interesting, but it's way beyond my capabilities or capacity.
True.
So yeah, okay.
Do you use the coloured stick? Do we send some coloured sticks over?
Yeah,
Do you use them?
Sticks on those. We did initially. We had black and white sticks from you, but amazingly, I don't know who steals underwater hockey sticks. Somebody does. Because we went through, I reckon, 12. Well, a set of 12 sticks that were the right colour, and then we got pink and green ones, and somehow the pink and green ones have never gone missing, and so yeah. And the reality is, we've got every stick I think you make in pink and green, which means new players can try them all out and find one they like, and then they can order that stick. So works out really well both ways.
The new players still use, like, you still kind of have that as part of your training, where the new players grab coloured sticks.
Yeah, new players only grab a pink or a green stick. The greens can look a little bit white underwater, but generally, the more experienced of our players know that person's a new player, and I guess give them the best possible experience. I mean, one of the things that we don't want to do is reward bad play. So if someone's been playing for 3 or 4 weeks and they do something dumb, then take the puck off them, and the person who's the coach on their team should find the opportunity to say, why you lost the puck? Because you did something dumb. But here's what you did really well up until then.
Sandwiches and stuff. Your sandwich compliments and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, try not to do too much of that, but a little bit of that. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got one of your notes here. You said you keep a spreadsheet of who shows up to hockey. Was that just in the start, or do you keep that up, or how was that helpful?
I think that is, one of the things that you'll find any company or business or government department doing is keeping data. And it's definitely, I think, helped us to grow player-wise. There's a bunch of reasons around that. If you've got a player who is a pretty regular player and they suddenly stop coming, you can find out why. You give them a phone call or a little message on Messenger or whatever, and you say, hey, what's going on? And they might say, oh, look, I just had a bad experience in the pool the other night where this person yelled at me and swore at me, and they haven't felt like coming back. And you'd be like, oh, sweet, all right, cool, let's go fix that issue up. Come back next week, it won't be a problem. And so I think that level of oversight gives you the ability to retain your players, or find out why they're not coming back, or find out why they haven't been. Sometimes there's things going on in their lives, or money's an issue, or stress, or whatever, and just that little bit of extra, come along when you can, or let me know if I can give you a hand with anything.
Yeah, sure.
That player coming along.
So how do you keep that up?
Also gives you the ability. I just have a spreadsheet with names on it. It's evolved over the last few years. And basically, if they rocked up of an evening, I put a 1 next to their name, and if they didn't, they get nothing. And so yeah, you can kind of see what sort of percentage that player comes along in a week, over 13 weeks. Helps to keep a track of who's paid money, because you can say, well, you know what, this is how we run our finances within our club,
Mm.
and you've played particularly this many times. And they go, how do you know that? Well, I keep a spreadsheet. Oh, okay, cool. How much do I owe? And so there's never really any arguments about it.
Yeah, true.
Um, and yeah, you can, like, yeah, I've been tracking the data for our club since we started doing spreadsheets, which was back in 2015, and it's pretty cool to look back and see. You know, you can set up a little graph or whatever, and so you can see the growth over the different years. And
Mm.
there's been probably a steady 10 to 15% growth in our club, um, across every month that we run, kind of thing. You know, numbers dip in winter like they do for, I think, most pool-based sports. It's cold, people don't want to get in the water.
Yep.
But even then, we're still. It's cold in Cairns, I know.
Yeah, I know. It makes you think, man, I'm just playing the wrong sport when you turn up to the pool and you're just like, I don't want to get in. Like it seems wrong, eh? But it's a real thing, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, yeah. I can remember doing polar bear swims in New Zealand, where people would chuck $20 note in an ice cream bottle or whatever, and it would get dumped out beyond the surf line. Middle of winter, you'd jump in, you'd find this ice block, you'd start swimming in, someone would see you with an ice block, they'd tackle you, you'd be trying to grab the slippery, cold bunch of ice, you'd drown that person, you get to the beach, you put it with your little minder, you'd race back in, and you wouldn't even think about how cold the water is. And then you live in Cairns for, I don't know, since 2004, so that's a while, 16 years. And you get to the pool on a winter's night and the temperatures drop to a whole massive 14 degrees, and you're standing there going, oh, 27. Oh, I don't know whether I can hop in this water. It's a bit cold. You know,
Yeah.
14 degrees is it's pretty
That
warm for Christchurch in the middle of winter.
that polar bear swim, yeah, that sounds epic. That must be a South Island thing, right? Like I haven't. I mean, I've seen like winter swims, but I haven't seen people grabbing blocks of ice.
No, they did it. They did it in Waiheke Island as well.
Oh right.
I remember there was a, I don't know, a solstice swim or whatever, coldest day of the year, and yeah, the council or whoever it was would just freeze down all this paper money and blocks of ice, and there'd be a little rubber ducky that would dump it out behind the surf line, and you'd race into the surf and try and grab as many of these. And there'd be a $20 note and a $5 block of ice, and you'd be like definitely going for the 20, but someone
Uh,
else would go for it, and it was
right.
good fun. But
Maybe we should do that in the
anyway,
pool. We could do that in the pool, eh? We could do that in the pool somehow.
you could do that in the
Mm.
pool.
Give me an idea for
Yeah,
training camps. Yeah. Where are we now? I've run out of most of the. It said we recruited a Sam Thompson. So Sam came over there
I
from.
think so. Yeah, that was for in terms of our club growth. Um, so there was Warren. He'd gone along to a few nationals. People had given him pointers. There was me. I'd started to get interested in how to play better, but you're limited by the knowledge you have. And the reality is, if you're in a small regional area like Cairns was, we didn't have access to anybody who had ever played international hockey or who had ever been trained to play international hockey. It was all just kind of, I saw this on YouTube the other day, let's give it a go.
Right.
And so having him bring that level of structure, I guess, into our club was super valuable. And it's where we've got Anton helping us out now as well, and that's really really cool. He brings that passion for refereeing and coaching as well, juniors, and so it just helps to bring different ideas in, and I guess get that level of support. And the reality is, I think coming from him coming to our club is where we got the idea to invite people like you and Nick Martin and different people to come and run underwater hockey development weekends for us as a club, because you know there's a point where Sam can coach and then everyone just goes, oh, that's Sam, whereas Liam comes along and everyone goes, oh my goodness, Liam. Like Nick Martin, I remember said, you should swim as a warm up 200 meters without fins, and then you should cool down 200. We've got one guy in our club who's never stopped doing that. Every week he jumps in because Nick Martin said it, and so that's what he does. Does his 200-meter warm down, his 200-meter warm up, and it's before he'll play hockey. And so getting that level of coaching and expertise definitely helps your club grow. So yeah, we've tried heaps of different things over the years, and we've definitely found a few solutions that have been quite successful. We've found giving out a free T-shirt to new players. You know, if we get someone rock along 3 times, we give them an underwater hockey T-shirt, and they really like that. And so they tell us how they're wearing an underwater hockey T-shirt all the time, and people are asking them questions about it. And you know, some of those people then come play hockey or come give it a go. Our retention for those people could be better. We've definitely had hundreds of people come through the club to play hockey, but through different reasons, retaining those people is difficult. But as a part of it, we've retained some, and so we've gone from, you know, I think we've got around about 60, 70 players in the club at the moment that are pretty regular. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of
we
funny.
Get them all coming along.
Yeah, most clubs are most clubs they find retention as a problem, but they don't actually have set up the sort of other side of the coin, like the pulling people in. So most of the time, the way people end up at a club is they move in from somewhere else, or here in New Zealand, they come from school.
You get transfer growth.
Yeah.
I mean, I think ways that you grow a club, and transfer growth is one. But yeah, I think it's not. I don't think it's that hard to advertise and get people to come play underwater hockey. It just requires somebody in your club to decide that they're going to come up with a few different ways to do that and make it happen, and then boom, you've got people coming along to the club once, twice a week, and yeah.
And you have all, but it's kind of crucial that you have all the strategies to receive the new people, you know. So you've got all these, you've got everything set up so that when new people turn up, you know exactly what you can do with them. Everyone knows how to treat them. They've got a little sort of on-ramp sort of series they can go along, and whereas a lot of clubs don't have that either, because a new person turns up and has the kind of experience which you had originally, and I think probably which I had originally as well.
To build those things into our club, but definitely starting off with that attitude that we wanted to retain people who came along for the first time helped. And the other thing that we found pretty good was if you can get people to buy gear straight away, you know, or pretty quickly, if they come along 3 times, you can go, you know what, you should probably get some gear. And they're like, yeah, I love this, I'll get some gear. They then spend, it's not an expensive sport, but they spend a couple of $100 on some gear. Now all of a sudden they've got this gear, and if they drop out of the sport, it's a waste of investment.
I see.
I mean, research would indicate that if you get people to pay in advance for their hockey, you'll see a 10 to 15% growth in terms of people rocking up overnight. And the reality is, I think, is because people hate to waste money. Like, we're charging, I think, if you're a regular, you're paying about $4.50 a game. $1 of that sort of is profit for our club, and we use that profit to fly people like yourself for a development weekend, or fly players down to regional comps or things like that. But it's pretty cheap. And the reality is $4.50. Like, I mean, I'm still stuck. Like 1992, Liam, was when I graduated school, and I still remember being able to buy a pie for 50 cents. And so $4.50 seems a reasonable amount of money to me, but it's nothing. But people will rock along to play a game because they paid for that game in advance and they don't want to waste their money. That's the reality. So we moved to a pay in advance system, and we watched our attendance jump up around about 10 to 15%, which was what the research indicated it would, because people just don't want to waste their money.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense.
And so if they've all got money for the game, then yeah, they don't want to feel like, oh, I'll stay home, but then I've wasted that money that I paid for that. Oh, I'll just go because it's good for me.
Yeah, true. So you've kind of got two. So you kind of got two things going on with the gear, where you actually have gear for people to use, because you've got like a big gear gear basket with all the gear that they need when they rock up to actually use. But also, once they've been there, so when they turn up, they've got good gear which fits well, because that's always a problem for new people, when they've got a crappy mask and a snorkel that leaks and whatnot. But then after a couple of weeks, you're trying to get them in to own their own gear, so they have that added incentive to use the gear that they own as well.
Yeah, and it means that there's definitely been nights where we've had 10 to 15 new players jump in the water, and so if you've got your existing new players borrowing beginner gear, you run out of that beginner. Like, we've probably got enough beginner gear to run about 20 new players. But if you've got your existing new players still using that gear, and someone new comes along, they got nothing to use. So you're going through your gear, going, here's a cap, here's some whatever.
Here's something mouldy.
Whereas if if someone's keen, and you can go, well, we've got all the gear here you can buy, because that's the other thing with underwater hockey. Where do you get the gear? You can't get the stick locally. And if I say get your sticks from Liam in New Zealand, here's the website, I go, yeah, when I get round to it. And getting round to it is one of those coins that sits in your pocket forever. Whereas if you've got the gear sitting with someone in your club, and they can just walk out to the back of a car on a Wednesday night and go, oh, right, cool, there it goes, Tomahawks, I see people using them, and I have one of those ninja gloves, thank you, and you sell Narjades, cool, I'm a size 4, you just say, chuck the money in the bank account later on, they go, sweet, you just keep it in the system, and they pay the money, and now they've suddenly invested in a sport that have only been playing for 3 or 4 weeks. They're most likely going to continue that investment. So, yeah,
it's a good angle. I hadn't thought about that.
I think it's I don't think it's rocket science. I just think it's smart to people don't like to waste money, but people also don't like to feel like they're putting a club out or something. So they're usually, if they're enjoying it, happy to buy gear. And most of the people who are coming along can either pay for the gear up front, or, like I'll say to people, take the gear now and just pay. If you can only pay $100 a week, pay $100 a week. You pay $50 a week, pay $50 a week. If you never pay for it, then, oh well, you know what? I guess I'll feel bad about it, and you can feel bad about it. But but most people are honest. You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, totally. Cool. Hey, we've gone for a while. We've got a good little length podcast here. So so what if I just ask you a crazy question? What's that?
There's actually heaps more that I can say. I've got 1,000 million ideas.
A rabbit hole, honestly. Okay, well then, if you have, give me your biggest bang for buck thing. If you're telling someone who's going to set up a new club, what would be the most important thing that they just have to focus on? And then what's your craziest idea that you haven't done but you'd like to do that you reckon would be good?
One that I think works really, really well is comps as mini holidays. I don't know how well it works in New Zealand, but I would definitely, if I lived in Auckland, I'd be travelling to anything that happened to play some hockey, and then to have a little mini holiday tacked on the end. I'd take a couple of days leave. I'd check out Wellington. I'd check out Dunedin. I'd check out Tauranga, whatever it was, wherever I live.
Okay.
Go skiing at the Mount, go skiing at the Mount, whatever. So I think that's a good little segue for new players, because the reality is they get to go and play a whole bunch of people. Underwater hockey people are pretty friendly. You were pretty friendly. Benson was mostly pretty friendly, as were a whole bunch of other people that I've met around New Zealand, Rob Harrison, a few others. And so they get out and they see that these people are super friendly and they have a great time with them, and they're like, I just want to do this more. And so they're happy to invest in future competitions, future development of themselves as a player, because they want to play well. In terms of your two questions, the second one's hard. The first one's also hard. What's the most important thing to do? I would guess the most important thing is to have reasonably quality gear for new people to have. If you give someone a snorkel that's got mold growing in it and a mask that's got mold growing in it, and a glove that is so cracked and faded with age, with holes through it, and a bat that's got so many splinters in it, it's going to injure someone if they stick them, then you're probably not going to see that player come back again. Whereas if you've got good quality gear that you give them, relatively speaking, then they're not going to be worried about catching COVID-19, the kidney, from the snorkel mask or whatever, and they're going to be willing to come back next week. Thing that I haven't done yet. What was so? How'd you phrase that question?
How did I? The craziest thing that you think would be good but you haven't tried.
Oh, actually, the craziest thing that we haven't tried yet but is on the radar is to run a game of underwater hockey out at the reef. So set up a couple of goals, and some players, subs, and I don't know how. It's probably just going to be a lot of flicking and pushing it through the sand. We've thought about tarpaulins. So you'd set up a tarpaulin with a bunch of gym weights on each corner.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know how that'd work. And that's only going to be 6 meters by 6 meters. But that is, I think, the crazy idea that we would like to get off the ground.
That would be awesome.
And obviously film it and promote it, because that'd be cool as well.
I think you won't be the only one to have that sort of daydream idea. Like your day at the beach, and you're at the beach maybe, and it's a nice day, and the waves aren't too big, and then you just think, man, wouldn't it be awesome if we could just be out there like waist deep water playing hockey, and like roll out some netting or matting or fencing or something, and stick some weights on the ends.
You'd play the game at the reef with a spare gun in the sub bench next to the coral where the coral trout is, and when you're subbed, you'd ping yourself a coral trout, and then you go play. You come back and you'd find a crayfish under the rock, and then lunch is set, isn't it? You've got crays and trout, and you've had a game of hockey, and what could be better,
Maybe you could play with a little scallop. You have you drop a scallop, and the scallop kind of goes.
I don't put that scallops.
Yeah.
I love scallops.
Yeah, you have to play with scallops. That'd be good. Oh, good one. All right, and then how about what's your best moment playing hockey? That your kind of most enjoyable experience playing hockey for you in your.
My best moment playing hockey was definitely playing for New Zealand in the Masters team. You know what? I wasn't at that level. I probably am getting close to that level now. But it was a great experience, and I played my heart out. I had a couple of good moments, had a couple of bad moments, but it was just a great team environment. It was a fun time. We tried to be as competitive as we could, and it was magic. Really, really enjoyed it, and so very, very grateful to everyone that made it happen, and definitely enjoyed saying hi to you and Benson, and having Benson play with us. That was awesome. Man,
it's always good.
More of that.
Yeah.
So that would be my pinnacle underwater hockey moment at the moment. So,
cool. Yeah, well, you guys put a lot of work you put a lot of work in traveling, getting ready for that one, didn't you?
I did. I don't think I've ever been fitter than I was. I probably still didn't quite play to my fitness, and I do remember hopping in that 3 meter pool and just going, what have I done to myself? And we're Speedos. I reckon I know how a girl feels the first time she wears a bikini, because that's how I felt having to wear Speedos. There just wasn't enough material covering up anything.
You just wear you got to wear an old saggy pair underneath, and you just have a little bit more coverage if they're pretty, competition dogs. But, Yeah, I think everyone feels that about deep pools. I like deep pools because it gives the game more space, but at the same time, everyone hates deep pools because it just...
By the end of it, I thoroughly loved it and thought it was the best possible hockey you could play, but at the start of it, I was like, what have I done?
It's funny in my day, because by the end, it's felt normal, eh? By the end, it does feel quite normal.
Yeah. It feels completely normal.
And then you get home and you feel like you're playing in a bathtub.
Yes. Yep. Totally. Anyway.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks for chatting, Sean. It's been good.
No worries.
anyone who's still here at this stage, well done. Thanks for hanging around, and hopefully we've sort of talked about some ideas which are kind of useful. Some of them, bunch of them were new to me, and I hadn't thought about them. It's been a long time since I've been organising our club, but I did do some a long time ago.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm happy to throw you the. I did a PowerPoint presentation for this stuff, which I bored all the club admins with in Queensland. Happy to throw that to you. Happy
Yeah.
to throw you that Word document again if you want to put that up and as notes or whatever.
okay,
I
cool.
don't know.
Yeah, I've got the
I
notes
think-
here. I've got that Word document. I'll just drop that. I'll drop that in the footer of the vid. But if you got that a PowerPoint, then yeah, send it over, and I'll try and figure out how to make it available for people. Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
Anything more to add? What
All
are we
right. Nah, probably I've got to go cook dinner now.
doing? Oh, dinner time for you. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
go lie on the fire, in front of the fire, and read a book.
Excellent. No dramas. Thanks heaps.
Cheers, Sean. Thanks, man.